This removes the greatest danger that threatens a weak or unprepared mage, the potential to attract demons across the veil. But this is the least of the tranquility's effects, for the absence of dreams brings with it the end of all magical ability, as well as emotion. The tranquil, ironically, resemble sleepwalkers, never entirely awake nor asleep. They are still part of our circle, however, and some might say they are the most critical part. They have incredible powers of concentration, for it is simply impossible to distract a tranquil mage, and this makes them capable of becoming craftsmen of such skill that they rival even the adeptness of the dwarves. The Formari, the branch of the circle devoted to item enchantment, is made up exclusively of tranquil and is the source of all wealth that sustains our towers. From On Tranquility and the Role of the Fade in Human Society by First Enchanter Josephus. So you could see why Jowan was kind of afraid to become tranquil, because it would take away all of his emotions, pretty much his, spirit. Alright, culture. Culture and history. The Tevinter Imperium. So this is another country in Thedas, the one that is ruled pretty much by mages. So it's kind of the opposite of all the other countries where mages are kind of restricted and controlled very closely. The Tevinter is controlled by mages. Alright, so the Imperium is little more than a dilapidated old slattern crouching in the far north of Thedas, drunkenly cursing at passerby to recall her faded beauty. One can see that Minrathous was once the center of the world. The vestiges of her power and artistry yet stand, but they are buried in the layers of filth that the Imperium's decadence has accumulated over the ages. The Magocracy live in elegant stone towers literally elevated above the stench of the slaves and peasants below. The outskirts of Minrathous are awash in a sea of refugees turned destitute by the never-ending war between the Imperium and the Kunari. And yet the Imperium survives. Whether with sword or magic, Tevinter remains a source to be reckoned with. Minrathous has been designed by men, by Kunari, by Andraste herself, and never fallen. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar by Brother Genitivi. So, we've heard a lot about the Tevinter Imperiums and the Magisters from there. They're the ones who entered the Black City, things like that. Alright, let's read about the Kokari Wilds, which is the area that we're in. We're in Ostagar, the ruins of Ostagar, but the ruins are overlooking the Kokari Wilds. It is said that in the midst of the Black Age, when werewolves stalked the lands of Ferelden in numbers that kept every farmholder indoors and a hound on every doorstep, a powerful Arl of the Almari people stood and declared that he would put an end to the threat. His Arling stood on the border of the dark forest of the southern border of the Ferelden Valley. Wait, sorry, I read that weird. His Arling stood on the border of the dark forest on the southern border of the Ferelden Valley, and he claimed that the werewolves used the forest to launch their midnight assaults on humanity. For 20 years, this Arl led an army of warriors and hounds deep into the forest. In his hunt for the werewolves, he slew not only every wolf he came upon, but also every member of the chastened wilder folk. Any one of them, he said, could harbor a demon inside and thus be a werewolf in disguise. For 20 years, the forest rang with screams and the rivers ran red. The tales say that an old chastened woman found her sons all dead at the Arl's blades. She pulled one of those very blades from one son's heart and plunged it into her own chest, cursing the Arl's name as she did so. Where her blood touched the ground, a mist began to rise. It spread and spread until it was everywhere in the forest. The Arl's army became lost, and it is said that they died there. Others say they wander still. The ruins of his Arling stand to this day, filled with the ghosts of women waiting eternally for their husbands to return. The forest of the legend is, of course, the Kokari Wild. Hello and welcome to the Codex video for episode 2 of Dragon Age Origins. Let's get started with our new creature Codex entries. So here we could talk about the Archdemon, which we've talked about kind of a little bit, but not in detail. So let's go. In darkness eternal they searched for those who had goaded them on, until at last they found their prize, their god, their betrayer. The sleepless dragon Dumont, their taint twisted, even the false god and the whisperer awoke at last in pain and horror, and led them to wreak havoc upon all the nations of the world, the first blight. So we've talked about kind of what the blight was, and that the darkspawn are drawn to the archdemon. The false dragon gods of the Tevinter Imperium lie buried deep within the earth, where they have been imprisoned since the Maker cast them down. No one knows what it is that drives the darkspawn in their relentless search for the sleeping old gods. Perhaps it is instinct, as moths will fly into torch flames. Perhaps there is some remnant of desire for vengeance upon the ones who goaded the Magisters to assault heaven. Whatever the reason, when darkspawn find one of these ancient dragons, it is immediately afflicted by the taint. It awakens twisted and corrupted and leads the darkspawn in a full-scale invasion of the land, a blight. So that's kind of what's happening, or what's starting to happen here, that Duncan is trying to recruit Grey Wardens to fight against, because he believes there's an archdemon leading these darkspawn. There are as many legends about the Great Southern Forest as there are shadows, or so the saying goes. The chastened wilder folk have made their home since mankind first came to these lands, and the wildlands spread as far to the south as anyone has ventured. Beyond the mists are vast tracts of snow, white-capped mountains, and entire fields of ice. It is a land too cold for mankind to survive, yet the chastened eke out an existence even there, and they tell of horrors beyond the wilds that the lowland folk could not begin to comprehend. To most, Ferelden simply ends with the Cookari Wilds. There is nothing beyond. The wilds is a land of great trees, wet marshes, and dangerous monsters. What more can be said? From Land of the Wilders by Mother Aeolus, Chantry Scholar, 918 Dragon. Alright, so that's where we are right now. Let's look at characters. King Kaelin Therin. I'd hoped for a war like the Tales, a king riding with the fabled Grey Wardens against a tainted god. So we just met the king. He's young, kind of not taking things seriously. Son of the legendary King Merrick Therin, Kaelin was the first king born into a land free from foreign rule in 2 generations. Since his father's death, he's held the throne alongside his queen, Anora. Alright, and we have Loghain MacTyr. It takes more than legends to win a battle. So Loghain we haven't met yet, but we've heard them talking about him. Loghain was born a farmer during a time when his country was under foreign occupation. When he was still a boy, he joined the resistance, where his considerable tactical genius quickly became apparent. He became close friends with Prince Merrick, the last true heir to the Ferelden throne, and together they led the rebels to drive out the forces of the Orlesian Empire. Merrick raised his friend to the nobility, and Loghain is now more of a symbol than a man. He represents the Ferelden ideals of hard work and independence. So, not too long ago, Ferelden was occupied by Orlais, which is a neighboring country, and Loghain was part of the resistance and helped get Ferelden's independence back. And he's now, I think, like, the general or something. I don't know these military terms, but he's like one of the people in charge of the army, like a commander or something of the king's army. We haven't met him yet, but we've heard them talking about him. Alright, we also have controls, which I don't think you're interested in because you're not the one doing the playing of the game. And I think that's it for our codex so far. So, in the next video, I will add another codex addendum video to just talk about everything we've learned in that video. So, thanks for watching. Bye. Alright, let's look at Deepstalker. So these are the little dinosaur-like creatures we saw in the repository. A fool trusts his eyes, a wise man fears every rock is a Deepstalker. A dwarven saying. Possibly the strangest of all the creatures found in the deep roads is the Deepstalker. Tezpadam, as the dwarves call them. hunt in packs, generally by burrowing underground and then striking when their prey is in their midst. Stalkers come in several types. Spitters have venom glands and can spit secretions that slow or injure their prey. Jumpers hurl themselves at their targets, knocking them down and making the kill easier. The most common variety scares its prey, leaving the unfortunate victim helpless against the rest of the pack. Alright, now let's go to giant spider, which are the huge spiders, obviously, that we came across when we were clearing out the stores for the senior enchanter. Giant spiders tend to appear in old ruins and other places where the veil has become thin because of magical disturbances or a great number of deaths. In such places, spirits and demons pass into the world of the living and attempt to take control over living beings, spiders among them. Not all scholars accept this explanation for the presence of these beasts, however. Some claim that the thinning veil allows magic to leak from the Fade, tainting such creatures as these spiders to transform into larger and more potent creatures than they ever would become naturally. So the veil, they mean the veil that separates the real world from the Fade, and the Fade is what the different dimension, I guess, that we went to in our harrowing, like the dream world, where the demons and spirits live. So yeah, they're saying the veil is thinning, so magic is leaking through. While such spiders are known to possess powerful poisons and the ability to fling their webs at opponents in combat, studies of them have been few and the full range of their abilities are unknown. Alright, I think that's it for our creatures. Let's go to magic and religion. The Aeonar. When the Imperium occupied the area that is present-day Ferelden, they had two sites dedicated to magical experimentation and at the extreme ends of the Imperial Highway. The southern one was the Fortress of Ostagar, and that's where we are right now, which looked out over the Kokari Wilds. The northern one was Aeonar, although the exact location is now a secret known only to a handful of Templars. Whatever it was the Tevinter were trying to discover at Aeonar, their work was never completed. The fortress was overrun by disciples of Andraste upon hearing the news of her death. According to legend, it was a massacre, eerily silent, for the invaders caught the mages while all but one of them were in the Fade. The site was left structurally sound but spiritually damaged. Possibly because of this, the Chantry chose to put it to use as a prison. Accused Maleficarum and apostates are held in the confines of Aeonar. Those who have a powerful connection to the Fade, and particularly to demons, will inevitably attract something across the veil, making the guilty somewhat easier to tell from the innocent. And this is from Of Fires, Circles, and Templars, A History of Magic in the Chantry by Sister Petrine, Chantry Scholar. So, Aeonar is the prison that they were saying they would take Lily to. Okay, what else do we have here? The Tranquil. So the Tranquil, like Owain, and what Jowan was afraid of becoming. Although apprentices do not know the nature of the harrowing, all of them understand its consequences. They either pass and become full mages, or they are never seen again. Those who fear to undertake this rite of passage, or those who are deemed too weak or unstable, are given the rite of tranquility instead. The actual procedure, like the harrowing, is secret, but the results are just as well known. The rite severs connection to the Fade. The Tranquil, therefore, do not dream.